Strop! Sharpen time! Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. I'm not quite sure why, but recently I've been getting a lot of questions about strops. What side of the strop should I use? What's the compound you should use on it? What type of leather should I be using? And with how simple of a tool this is, it's just a chunk of leather. There are 1,000 different ways you can use it and 1,000 different things you can put on it, and it is an extremely versatile method of sharpening. To put it basically, the strop is the final stage at which you can get a really nice clean polish on your sharpened tools. And if you don't let them get too dull, you can actually just always use the strop and never have to worry about sharpening it in other ways. There are those out there who believe that your stones should be the final thing. So you'll get to the Shapton stones, they're like 16,000 grit and 20,000 grit, and they're like impressively sharp. And they're really kind of cool to sharpen the final thing on that. But I actually just prefer the strop, and this is around like 1,200 grit. It doesn't really need to get much finer than that because the strop will really take care of a lot of the final touches on it, giving you that really nice polish on it. But then the question comes, what leather do I use? So let's look at that. This leather over here is cowhide. It's a slightly thinner cowhide. I'm guessing like around a 6 to 7 ounce. It's a stiff veg tan. And if you notice here, I also have the smooth side as well as the rough side of the leather. And each one has slightly different purposes. The leather strop that I'm using here is actually a horse butt. It is a very, very stiff, thin leather. And I can buy it on these large pieces like this. Tools for Working Wood actually sells pieces that are about this size that you can buy, but if you can find a larger piece of horse butt, you can get a whole bunch of strops out of it, and that'll last you for a lifetime. Some people prefer a more softer, flexible, like a brain tanned leather, and that pile then holds the buffing compound really well. Paul Sellers likes that. I'm not a big fan of it, but a lot of people really do like the softer feeling of it. I actually like the harder horse butt personally. It tends to not, you don't let the chisel push down into it, because if the chisel has too much force pushing down in there, as it goes around, the leather will actually wrap up around the blade and kind of dull the tip you have if you're pushing a little too hard. So for me, most of my strops are horse butt. Even this one that I've made kind of more flexible over time to get inside of my gouges is still horse butt. It's just I've worked it enough that it's loose enough that I can bend it over and run the inside of my gouges. Then the next question people ask is, what is the polishing compound I should use? What's the right one for the steel? And in all honesty, it doesn't matter. Yes, there are differences. Different polishing compounds have different grits. Basically, some will sharpen faster, some will give it a nice buffier shine. But in all honesty, they'll all do the same. So whether it's a zinc oxide or a chrome oxide, this is just the cheap black one that I got from Harbor Freight. I bought it like 3 years ago, and I've used like a 1/4 inch of it. And that's what I use. I really don't have any need to get anything else. I do have a zinc oxide block that I use occasionally, but that's just when I can't find this one. This one has a bit of a wax into it, so it fills up into the pores and stays there a lot longer. In all honesty, on this one, I rarely ever reapply it. Some people don't like this buffed out finish on there, and so they'll take a card scraper and actually scrape off that buffed out stuff and then reapply it occasionally, but I don't have any problem with it. I just leave it on there and use it. And I may reapply to this like once every 6 months or anytime I demonstrate scraping it off. Now I got to come back in here and refill it. But refilling it's just as simple as that, and then we're back at it. And then you'll notice in a few strokes that refilled area will become really nice and smoothed out just like all the others. The real question you need to ask is, do you even need compound on there? And in this case, I actually have this side here, which is the rough side of the leather up, and this side, the smooth side of the leather up. And this way, I can come through here and I can strop out with the compound, and then I'll come over here onto the smooth side of the leather and I'll do a final polish on this. And this is like 10,000 grit. This is actually more than that, probably somewhere around like 30,000 grit. You can get an incredibly smooth shine. So for my sharpening, I'll often have this on the bench, and I'll just do a few strokes on here, touch up, and then a few strokes on here, and I'll be right back to where I was. So how exactly do you use the strop? What I like to do is put a lot of pressure down on it. So I have one hand here on top of the iron. This hand back here then just adjusts the angle of it. And once I find that angle I'm looking for, I hold this angle, I put the pressure down on here, and then I'll move back at my feet, keeping my arms locked. So you can see my whole body is stuck together but I'm actually moving down at my waist, or actually a little lower, probably around my knees is where I'm moving right now. And once you get used to this, you can eventually go much faster. But just putting the pressure down on there is all you need. Then for the back, I'll often come in here at like 45 degrees. Again, this hand is pulling. This hand is just keeping force down on here, just keeping it flat and buffing out the back. So for a normal bench chisel, I'll go through my stones, get a nice edge on there, and then I have that little bit of wire edge I want to take off. Then I'll come over here and I'll do 20-30 strokes this way, flip it over, do 20 strokes or so this way, and you'll notice that at some point that wire edge just falls off and you'll have a wire edge sitting out here on the bench. If I'm sharpening some of my carving tools, I'll usually end up only having to do 5 to 10 strokes on this and then 5 to 10 strokes on this, because I keep this very sharp, and I'll use it for 4 or 5 minutes and then I'll come back and sharpen it up. Whereas my bench chisels, I tend to get them a little more dull, and that's why I'm going to go through the stones first and then strop them. So with these gouges with the bent blade, I'm going to start up here on this corner, and just like before, this handle back here angles it and this handle puts pressure on it, except for when I pull it back, this hand is also going to twist. And so as I pull it back, it rocks from one side to the other, and now I'm up on the other side of the wing. And then I'll come back and I'll do it again. And I'll just do that a few times, take it over here to the smooth leather and clean that up, and that's how I get the outside of the bevel. For the inside, I have this bent piece here, and I'm basically going to do the same thing and just let it conform to the inside of that bevel. So there really is no right way to do it. There are a whole bunch of different leathers you can choose from. There are a whole bunch of different polishes you can choose, and even some styles of how you use it or when you use it. And once you find what you like, you're going to find that this makes sharpening so much easier, because if you can keep on top of the sharpening and not let it get too dull, then all you have to do is strop it occasionally, and you'll never have to take it back to the stones. And that's basically what I do for all my sharpening chisels. It doesn't take much at all to keep it sharp. It's a really fun tool that can do a lot more than people expect it to. Now I'll leave a link to some of the leathers and compounds that I suggest, and if you want to, buy one or two, experiment and see if you can tell a difference, see if there's something you really like, see if you like the rough side or the smooth side, or if you like putting the compound on the smooth side. There are 1,000 different ways to do it. And the only way to find the one that works best for you is to experiment, play with it, and have a little bit of fun. Be willing to do something different. Now this is a video suggested by one of the viewers on the Wood by Wright Hive Mind group, and I started up this group to try and bounce some ideas off and say, what do you think about doing this video next, or what should I do here, do you like this thumbnail, or basically a place that I can get some input from you, the audience, and make it a little bit faster. So if you'd like to join that group, I'll leave a link to that down below as well. I do want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You are, as always, the reason why this channel is clicking. I don't have any sponsors on this channel, and that's because I really want it to be all about you, the viewers. So thank you for that. If you'd like to find out more about Patreon, you can do so right down there. Also, you can subscribe here or see the second channel right over here. That's about it for today. Until next time, have a wonderful day.